matters observed by the police in criminal cases. It specifically addresses that. So go ahead with your direct.
Which is why we go to 8036.
But a lot of judges would see that and not allow it.
There's a case law that says it's admissible under 8038, even if you offer it under 8036.
Even if there's
Not in
10
Midlands,
other
not in Midlands,
exceptions.
so I'd still make that argument. I understand it. Not in Midlands, so I'd still make the argument you're
It's not
making.
a typical police report.
It's not a police report at all.
Huh?
It's not a police report at all.
Made by police officers, police report. That crash team is part of law enforcement, it's still a police report.
Officer Foster, when you create these reports, what do you look for?
We look for tire markings. We look at the wreckage of the car, of the accident. We use in factors such as the energy formulas, combined speed, drag sled, and drag factors.
Now, what is the ultimate goal of the analysis?
To find the source and the cause of the fatal accident.
Were you able to do that in this case?
Yes, I was.
Now, in order to come to a conclusion in this case, specifically, what did you consider?
I considered the possible state of mind of the defendant, the weather. It was heavily raining that night. The terrain, as far as the highway, and by using all three of those, we incorporated the Windsor and Strasburg primer, and that's how I came to my conclusion.
You mentioned the Windsor and Strasburg primer. What does that deal with?
It deals with energy formulas, combined speed, drag factor, and drag sled use.
How did you use those in this case?
It's a complicated formula. I'm sure no one here would be able to understand.
Essentially, no, there's speculation.
And to criticizing the entire jury all in one statement.
I wasn't going to point that out, but.
Yeah, we'll strike the list. Using these factors, were you able to come to any conclusions regarding speed of the vehicle?
Yes, I was.
At what point?
The vehicle, while traveling off the road, was going 66 miles per hour.
Were you able to determine any other speed of the vehicle?
I was. The speed of the vehicle when it hit the tree was 45 miles per hour.
Officer Foster, what is the posted speed limit on Canyon Road?
35 miles per hour.
Now, ultimately, what did you conclude was the cause of this accident?
Excessive reckless speed was the cause.
Thank you. We have nothing further at this time, and I will ask permission to approach and tender prosecution 1.
No, please. Cross-examination.
May inquire as how much time we have left on.
She's recording it, but.
Permission to proceed? Officer Foster, you arrived here on Canyon Road about 12:30 a.m. that night, correct?
For the accident, yes.
You were on Canyon Road posted about 12:30 a.m., correct?
No, I was actually there at 11 when my shift started.
At about 12:30 a.m. it started to rain, correct?
That's true.
And it was very hard to see it.
The visibility was decreased, yes.
And by 1 a.m. you would say it was actually a torrential downpour, correct?
Yes, that's true.
And still hard to see anything at all.
It still had decreased visibility, yes.
Now you had actually seen Vanessa Sullivan's car drive past about 1 a.m.
Objection, Your Honor. Relevance? I may be heard. Opposing counsel is about to elicit testimony of Vanessa Sullivan's car being spotted prior to the accident. This has no bearing in today's case unless they can draw a connection between the vehicle at that point and the vehicle at the point of impact.
Your Honor, this goes to Officer Foster's police work in general and how he acts upon when he sees a car and when he decides to pull them over and when he decides not to. Therefore, it goes to how he works as a police officer.
So to his credibility?
Yes.
All right, that's going to be tenuous to make the connection, but I will let you try, and then if she doesn't, obviously remove your objection.
Yes, Your Honor.
Yeah, you saw Vanessa Sullivan's car actually drive by at that time, correct?
Yes, I did.
And you had actually clocked it, or you had actually seen it speed by at that time,
I did.
but you didn't pull it over.
No, I didn't.
You'd actually seen the car swerve at that time. you didn't pull it over.
No, I didn't.
And you would actually pull over any car you would think when the driver is drunk, correct?
Yes, that's true.
And at that time, you thought that the driver of Vanessa Sullivan's car was okay to drive, correct?
Yes, I believe so.
You thought that they were just having trouble with the rain, with this torrential downpour.
That's correct.
And had you thought that that person was not able to drive, you would have done something about it at that time, correct?
Yes, I would.
Moving on now, Officer Foster, you were the
Objection, relevance, Your Honor. I renew.
Overruled.
Now, Officer Foster, you were the first officer to arrive at that scene, correct?
That's correct.
You actually were the officer that administered the 3 field sobriety tests to Danny Dawson.
Yes, that's correct.
Now, right before performing those tests, you would say that the pavement was pretty slick.
Yes, I would say that.
You almost fell yourself.
Yes, I almost slipped.
And when conducting these 3 field sobriety tests, Danny Dawson also complained that the pavement was slick, correct?
He did.
Yet you state that Danny Dawson failed all 3 sobriety tests.
I did say that.
Now, since you did such a thorough investigation in today's case, you are familiar with all the affidavits,
Yes, I am.
you are familiar with all the exhibits,
Yes, I am.
and you're actually familiar with Canyon Road.
I am familiar with County Road, yes.
Now, you do know that Danny Dawson complains that a deer had actually jumped out in the middle of the road before the accident.
Objection, Your Honor. Hearsay.
First, your response.
Your Honor, it goes to the veracity of his investigation. If he knows that Danny Dawson had complained about a deer jumping out of the road, and also that he's familiar with Canyon Road, and also the signs on the road, he should have investigated that possibly a deer should have been on the road.
All right, and I think the way you phrased that question, you were asking him, not if Danny said that, but through his investigation, if he considered the fact that Danny thought there was a deer on the road.
Yes.
Your Honor, I believe she asked if he found out that there was a deer on the road during the course of his investigation. He would not have been privy to that information unless someone told him.
Your Honor.
which
Where would he
make
have gotten
it-
that information from?
Your Honor, the affidavit, it states, in his affidavit, it also states in numerous affidavits in this investigation. And since he's aware of all the affidavits, he should know that this was a problem that arose.
So it was in Danny Dawson's affidavit.
It was in Danny Dawson's, it was also in his affidavit as well.
All right, and Danny Dawson's affidavit would obviously be hearsay today, right?
Correct, but it's also in his affidavit as well, along with numerous others.
But you're just asking if he was aware of that to consider it when he came to his
His
opinions?
investigation,
All right,
correct.
then I'll let it in.
Again, you're aware that Danny Dawson claims that a deer had jumped out on the road when the accident happened, correct?
Actually, I interviewed 3 witnesses and no one saw a deer. Neither did the defendant say that on the night when I interviewed.
However, Danny Dawson still claims that there was a deer on the road that night, correct? Throughout your investigation, you learned that.
Later, I did learn that, yes.
Now, and you also are aware that there's a deer crossing sign on Canyon Road, correct?
Yes, I am.
Now, Officer Foster, you've been a police officer for over 10 years.
That's correct.
You have performed many investigations in your day.
Yes, I am.
And you did a thorough investigation in this case as well.
I did.
And you are familiar with the fundamentals of police work, correct?
I am.
The fundamentals or the criminal procedure, correct?
I am.
And the fundamentals of investigation.
Yes, I am.
And in your field, in criminal procedure, you are supposed to investigate a case thoroughly.
Yes, I am.
And after investigating a case thoroughly, you then decide on a charge, correct?
I do.
But that didn't happen in today's case, did it?
I did not.
That's right, because that night on September 25th, 2010, the prosecutor actually came to the scene, correct?
Yes, she did.
And the prosecutor, the DA, is Vanessa Sullivan's mother.
She is.
And she told you, or she
Objection,
had,
Your Honor. Question calls for hearsay.
Your Honor, under 801 D2A, is admission by a party opponent. The prosecutor also represents the government in these cases.
That one I didn't see coming. Your response?
Your Honor, the prosecutor does not represent the government in this case. Prior to today's trial, if you will reference your motion in limine, the defense actually filed a motion to have the prosecutor removed or to have a change of venue. The Honorable Judge Wayne ruled that Ms. Sullivan be taken off this case, and she was in fact taken off this case. All charges that were pressed, all proceedings in today's trial have been done by myself and my co-counsel. Ms. Sullivan played no part.
Your Honor, if I may be heard, although Ms. Sullivan is not playing a part today, that night she came as the prosecutor as well as the mother, but she acted as the government that night.
So that night was before the ruling by the other judge?
Yes.
Your Honor, if I may, if Ms. Jeter is offering this as an admission by a party opponent, since we represent the people of Midlands, technically any statement by anyone in Midlands would qualify.
I will let this in, so your objection's overruled, and that's something that we need to iron out, because there are other ways we can address that. So, overruled.
The prosecutor had stated that night that she was gonna make Danny Dawson's life a living hell, correct?
That's correct.
And she said, because she still could.
She did, yes.
And that told you to start performing the tests, the 3 field sobriety tests, correct?
No, it did not.
After she made that statement, you say that that did not tell you to start performing tests.
No, she never told me to start performing tests.
I didn't, excuse me, after she made that statement, that told you to start performing tests, correct?
No, her statement did not induce me to start performing tests.
Is that your testimony before the court?
Yes, it is.
Officer Foster, do you remember preparing an affidavit for this case?
I do.
Your Honor, if I may, 2 minutes on the case.
If I may ask opposing counsel what line she would be referring to?
Lines 84 and 85. Now, do you remember writing this affidavit?
I do.
And were you told to update it with all important and pertinent information for this case?
I was.
Is that your signature on the back?
It is.
Were you told to update it up to 24 hours after the third 24 in this case?
Yes.
Officer Foster, I'd like to direct your attention to lines 84, 85, and 86. If you could read silently as I read out loud. It says, I can't bring Vanessa back, but I'm going to make Dawson's life a living hell because I can still do that. When the prosecutor says those words, then you know it's time to run a few tests. Did I read that correctly?
You did.
So Officer Foster, after you ran those tests, you continued to talk to the prosecutor, correct?
I believe I said maybe one other thing to her, yes.
And she told you that she needed more evidence for her murder investigation, correct?
She did say that, yes.
And this was said only after the 3 field sobriety tests.
Yes, it was.
This was said before the fatal crash, or before you created the fatal crash analysis, correct?
Yes, this is true.
And before any interviews.
Yes, this is true.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Redirect.
Yes, Your Honor. Any inquiries on which time I ever made? May I proceed? Officer Foster, earlier you were asked about a deer being in the road. When did you come to find out the defendant's claims?
It was much later. That night, he didn't mention anything about it.
That night, did you interview anyone else who was present at the scene?
Yes, I did.
Who were those people?
I talked to Lennon Bennett and Taylor Hobson.
Did either of these eyewitnesses mention a deer on the scene that night?
No, neither of them did.
Other than the defendant's statements, is there any evidence that would suggest that a deer was in the road that evening?
None whatsoever.
Now, you were also asked about the prosecutor being present at the scene. Do you recall that?
I do.
Just to be clear, is the prosecutor, Ms. Ryan Sullivan, your boss?
No, she's not.
Does she have any effect over your investigation?
No, she doesn't.
Specifically, which prosecutors did you work with in this case?
Yourself and those two.
Did Ms. Ryan Sullivan have any effect on the accuracy of your conclusions in today's case?
None whatsoever.
Thank you. Nothing further.
Recall?
Quick. May I proceed?
You may.
Officer Foster, you just stated that there is no other evidence that states that there could have been a deer on the road that night, correct?
No, I stated that no one that night told me that there was a deer.
You said that there was no other evidence saying that there could have been a deer on the road that night, correct?
Yes, that's true.
Now, you are familiar with Leslie Roman's report, yes?
Yes, I am.
And you are aware that it says that her report.
Objection, Your Honor, hearsay?
It's information that he considered when coming to his conclusion overall.
You're aware that her report states that the crash is consistent with the deer coming out on the road, correct?
Yes, it does say that.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Who was the prosecutor when all of this was taking place? Well, I'm just saying, I mean, if you are gonna get up
I
there.
mean,
Because he made a
I
big
wouldn't-
deal about who did you work with, but he didn't work with them that night.
right, but I want to make it quick.
Okay.
But if you want me to make it, I will.
No redirect. All right, one question.
Would you consider Ms. Roman's report valid?
No, I wouldn't.
Thank you.
I would say save that from when Ms. Roman's on the scene, attack her then. All right, comments?
Well, the main comment I have for you, Walter, is very good job, by the way. I would say you just need to work on the confidence level. You get the confidence level in, and you're already very confident from what I can see. But get rid of the ums and things like that. And if you do that, and you can kind of project a little bit more, I think you make a very, very good police officer. Keep a straight face even when you're wrong. We have the admission by a party opponent thing, and you kind of smile a little bit. I wanted to point out a couple of things that these two guys, and these are both veterans, Kim and Grady, that were good, and I want everybody to take note. One thing is Grady's looping. After this witness said, after the defendant poured him another, or he said he needed another drink. And then Grady went back to the next question and wanted to emphasize that. Said, after the defendant said he needed another drink, and go into the question, you're emphasizing that for the jury when you do that. They're taking note of that, because if you have a longer direct, jury might lose attention.
That being said, don't do it on every question, because I have seen attorneys that literally loop every question.
Yeah.
But on the big points, just feel free to say. And so after the defendant failed that field sobriety test, what did you do?
Cross-examination, Walter, you did a very good job on cross. Good return snipe. I have good return snipe about the witness who didn't see the deer. Because they asked you, you didn't have any evidence there was a deer. Well, or you didn't consider the fact that Danny Dawson said there was a deer or something to that effect. And your return on that was, well, I spoke with other witnesses and said it wasn't a deer. I spoke with 3 other witnesses that said it wasn't deer. But no, and the only suggestion I make is at the end of it, I tack on, but no, Danny Dawson did say there was a deer.
And so that was your speech.
Yeah. Don't admit that an objective investigation didn't happen. I don't think you could admit that. I think there was some questioning about that. I think he admitted that, and I can't remember all the questions that led up to that, but and Kim got to it. Well, that didn't happen in this case. No, I think was your response. Don't do that. Just, this is your cue. I think Kim's giving you a little wiggle room to explain it a little bit. You kind of know what's coming with the bias and the prosecutor and all that stuff. Sullivan or the other prosecutor or other lawyers or victims don't fall into the admission by party opponent as the state basically, I don't know if I'd say it exactly the way Gray did, although it was entertaining. But like for example, if I were to say something and that the other party couldn't elicit that for a witness, from what I said in court, or the defense couldn't do that. Lawyers are not the parties. Lawyers just represent the parties in any case. So a lawyer, whether it's one of you guys up front or another prosecutor, represents the state, might represent that party, but it's the party itself.
Now, so Mr. Mays, doesn't that get into some other issues when the district attorney's office not only represents cases, but they actually investigate them? Wouldn't then you get into issues with it being a party opponent?
Even the investigative officer, though, is not a party opponent. So even an officer that goes and does a full-blown investigation doesn't fall under that rule. So, and that's just because, kind of how Grady said it, it's kind of different from how I would say it, but you know, it is true that the state of Millis represents the entire state and all the people in the state. Where it technically represents the state, not any particular one person. Kim, don't act irritated when the witness doesn't admit what was in the affidavit. You kind of act like, yeah, stomp back. One thing Grady did that was very good, I want y'all to notice this. When Kim handed him the documents, he said, "Your Honor, may I ask what line opposing counsel is going to refer to?" He did not turn to Kim and say, Kim, or Ms. Jeter, can you tell me which line you're referring to? He addressed the judge, which is good.
All attorneys, if you get asked that question, just say the document in its entirety. And then that way, it doesn't give them a heads up, and you can continue on.
Or if you know the line number and you say it, I mean, it makes you sound like you're sharp because you know your stuff, but you know, whatever.
Yeah, if you don't know, just say the document in its entirety, and you're covered.
A lot of times you want to hand it to the witness and say, "Where is that in your affidavit?"